We've got Mr. Ryan. Great background, by the way, man.
Thank you.
I see it. I don't know if it's a dinosaur. I don't know what the hell it is, but it looks cute holding something green. What is that?
Oh, this right here?
Yeah, what is that?
This is actually a cause. I don't know how I get the blur off of here, but
It's okay. Tell us what it
it
is. It
is.
looks,
Let me bring it in for the real thing. So this is like
oh, there it is. I see
the,
it now.
the world to my son.
That's
Uh,
so cool.
and then I got kind of like the wife and daughter sitting side by side. So, the entire family, hanging out.
That's cool, man. Very
You
good.
know,
Very good.
yeah, it's got to
Um,
keep it interesting.
I love that. Yeah, it inspires too. So thank you for being on, everyone. Ryan Young, fellow, and also has an amazing team as well. We're going to be talking about how to get going with listings, how to keep that momentum through the summer. Obviously, for most, summer probably the best months for most people, but it's also the most amount to handle. Agents go
Mm.
crazy. They don't know how to sometimes keep the balance and keep things moving at the same time. So it can get a little hectic. But today I wanted to talk about how to maximize your listings through the summer. Like, how do we take it from where we're at to where all of us want to be, right? That level
Right,
up, Ryan.
right.
Where do we start with that?
Well, I think something that's really important. We kind of referenced it just briefly before we jumped on. You're in Southern California. I'm in Northeast Ohio. Every market is a little different, right? Like some markets feel seasonality in the summer, some feel seasonality in the winter. I think the concept is how do you remove seasonality from your business so that you're not feeling this start, stop, jerky kind of like, back and forth of like, I'm really busy in spring and then the summer I'm slowing down and then fall market it's picking back up and then winter it's slowing down. It's like, how do we remove a little bit of the lumpiness out of your business? And I think that's really important. And one of the things I think is really important for me to preface is before I started Fellow, I, still own and operated, number one team in the state of Ohio. And one of the things that I was really proud of is we sell about 500 homes a year with 15 agents. And so we're very consistent and it's very hard to see that type of productivity per agent if you're going up and coming down and going up and going down. And it's emotionally exhausting if you're running that type of business. It creates a lot of fatigue in the busy months, and then it creates a lot of anxiety in the slower months. So I think a lot of this is how do we remove some of the seasonality and the lumpiness out of our business, and how do we stay consistent uh, throughout all 12 months? And I think you'll find that you'll enjoy the industry a lot more. You'll enjoy what you do a lot more when it's like very steady across the entire year versus this roller coaster ride,
I agree with you, man. It gets scary, man. Like having
It
these
does.
ups and downs, it gets pretty scary. How do you guys tackle it? Like, where do you
Yeah.
start with this?
Yeah, I think one of the most important thing for us, so I will say it's a little easier for us because we're listing based. We sell of our business, over 60% of our business is listings year over year. And I'll
Got
show
it.
you guys some data and some numbers around the young team. But I feel like if you have listings and you have inventory on the market, you always have an opportunity to stay busy, right? Like you're always going to get sign calls, you're always going to have open house opportunities.
Mm,
So one of the recommendations is if you are a more buyer focused model to start to shift more of that business over to the listings. Something also that I have found just as we've scaled the young team is the more you can diversify your model and not be so all in on one segment. And here's what I mean. The young team, we have a luxury division. We work with
mm.
investors. We work with buyers and sellers. We work geographically in a pretty wide area. So we're not kind of like pigeonholed to like one market or one zip code or one price point. And I feel like the more diverse you can be, And it doesn't necessarily mean go so wide and don't be an expert in any of them. But the more diverse you can be, uh, the more you will see you remove a little bit of the seasonality. And I'll just give you an example. If you work with investors don't care about schools getting out or schools going back in or being in the new school district. An investor is looking at real estate as a wealth building opportunity. They'll buy in the summer, they'll buy in the winter. And so I've just found that like the more you can kind of diversify where you generate your business from, the more all of a sudden it opens up when markets are a little slower. Normally that the opposite of that market is a little stronger. And so if you work with a lot of sellers and you also have a nice buyer pipeline, when the market slows down on the sell side, hopefully you can start to push some of the buyer pipeline through. So
Like
the
that.
young team has done a good job diversifying all of our channels and making sure we're not so one-dimensional that if that one specific segment of our business slows down, we continue to push through and stay pretty consistent.
Where did you, what was your first piece of diversification when you started with your listing? You're like, okay, we're getting all our business here. Let's add
Mhm.
this layer. What was that
Yeah.
layer that was second?
The second layer was investors for me. And here's how it happened. I got in the business 2009 and I was 26 years old. I started working with a lot of my friends as like first time home buyers.
Hmm.
And I wanted to start generating listings. And I, the only, the only thing that I saw was consistent was I was trying to call for sale by owners, and I saw a lot of investors that were flipping homes back then were selling their own properties by owner. And so instead
Uh,
of calling them and saying, "Hey, can I help you list your home that you currently have by owner?" I actually took a
mhm.
little bit of a different approach and said, I see that you are buying homes and flipping them. If I can find you a deal off market that you find financially attractive and you want to buy that home, will you relist that home with me after you purchase it? So my angle was I'm not calling you why every other real estate agent is calling you. Every other real estate agent is calling you as a FISBO trying to get the listing. I'm calling you with a value add to say, let me find you an opportunity that no one else has access to. But here's my one caveat. If I can find you that opportunity, you're going to relist that property with me instead of by owner. And every investor kind of said, like, look, if you find me a great opportunity, I'll just build your commission into the purchase. I'm happy to relist it with you. And so I started all of a sudden find that a lot of these investors, I had access to something where I would go find off-market inventory for them, which started to help me build that kind of arm of our business. What was so nice about that arm was I started bringing a lot of homes to market that were move-in ready, that were, these flipped homes that were really attractive, drew a lot of buyer demand. So it kind of created this really nice flywheel of like every new renovated property I brought to market created a lot of inbound buyer demand to me. It was also nice because as they were flipping it, I could kind of like market it over the course of the 3 months, 4 months while they were renovating it, saying like, hey, I have something special coming up. So it was just it was a very nice second kind of layer to our business that really started to allow me to diversify outside of my sphere of influence.
All right, two questions. The same question though for you.
Yep.
Um, where are you finding the homes
Hmm.
to give to the investors? Are these homes that are
Yeah.
in the MLS, outside of the MLS? Do you have a, at this point, you probably have fleshed it all out in the sense that
Yeah.
this vision, but where
Yeah.
did you start with this? How can somebody listening and start with this?
Yeah. Great question. So I tapped a lot into my network in my database. So I started basically like becoming, what you focus on expands, right? And so I started basically becoming obsessed with how can I find value add properties that either homeowners that were in for a really long time and, you know, maybe were maintained, but they had good bones, quote unquote, but
Yeah.
cosmetically dated. And just I did everything from door knocking to calling old expireds. Expired, remember, I got in the business in 2009. This is probably now 2011, 12. A
Hmm.
lot of the homes that were listed in 2009 didn't sell. So I was reaching back out to those people and saying, hey, I know you tried to sell in 2009. You were unsuccessful doing so. If I can bring you an offer, and I kind of created this little mini marketplace essentially. And so I was just being as proactive as possible, looking through, turning over every stone of saying, would you be open to looking at an offer? And if you would, great. I've got investors. And then I would send it out to them and say, who wants this? Someone would buy it. And then I would get the listing back, 90, 120 days later.
Dude, that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It was
And
really
that,
cool.
I'm assuming, now that I understand this, because I didn't know this part about you, but I'm assuming that's what led to creating Fellow. I was part of it, right?
There is a
Yeah,
lot of
that makes sense.
there's a lot of the entrepreneurial way. Now, Fellow, you can automate all of it, right? Like Fellow,
Yeah.
you can do it right in the product. There are a lot of things that I took from as we were scaling the young team that have influenced the way we have built Fellow.
Got it. I love that, man. That's good. Okay, so now we've got we've got the agent who we mostly get most of our listings from referrals, right? That's like the
Yeah,
biggest base. The
sure.
next thing is investors, and I love the idea because you're right. Investors, they don't care when. They just want to
Right.
make sure that it matches the numbers.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it. All right, so now you're going into your database and you're reaching out and saying, "Hey, have any of you initially, have any of you in my database, have you thought about selling?" How do you reach out to them? What's the message that you ask? That's the
Yeah.
other question, by the way, not mine.
So this is circa, let's first start circa like 2012, and then we can fast forward to today because now we do this every day at a really high level. Um, Back then, it was literally any channel that I could get in front of them. It was a handwritten note in the mail. It was door knocking. By the way, I found that when you are very targeted in your door knocking, and you go knock on someone's door, don't tell them that you are focusing on their property. Say, hey, I was actually knocking on doors in the area, right? And make it seem like they were just one of those doors that you were knocking on in the area versus like, hey, I'm knocking on your door because you've been in your home for over 30 years and I can tell based on, that your lawn is unkept or whatever it is that like
Mhm.
you probably are in some sort of distress situation or whatever it may be. But I found myself just any channel that I could get in front of them. If I had their phone number, I would I'd reach out to them via phone. If I had their email, I'd reach out email. If not, I'd put a note in the mailbox. If not, I'd go knock on their door. But I just became really resourceful and proactive around kind of like, I got to get my message in front of them. What I don't want to see is I don't want to see them
Yeah.
go to market with someone else if I didn't get that message in front of them because I didn't take my shot or whatever it may be. So nowadays, what's so interesting is we automate this in our entire database daily. The young team now has grown to a much bigger team. We've got a database of 65,000 people, and we are every day getting a message about, to part of the database. Here's what we found is we leverage the home value message as a intro of saying, hey, check out the value of your home, which is very low intent, but it's relevant to every homeowner, right? Like if you own a home and you get a message of, I'm curious, are you curious how the value of your home has changed? That's a relevant message. And so what we do is now we keep our entire database of homeowners warm by continuing to bring them their home value and things of value and of substance. And then when I want to weave in a higher intent message, get a cash offer, we work with local investors, et cetera, then I start to
Mhm.
weave that message in once I've already built the brand awareness with them. Once I've already created, I would say, a cadence of them opening emails from me and seeing my brand, we start really top of funnel nowadays, though, and that is a much better way to kind of, I would say, preserve the relationship with homeowners in your database. Then, when you want to bring them down, you bring in a higher intent call to action.
Yeah. I see now what you did, which is I broke it down into three things on my notes. I'm like, so we started with how do you remove seasonality from your business?
Yep,
Number one, go listing based, right? It allows for more leverage. I agree,
yep,
100%. Number two, You said, but when you're going listings, diversify, right? Investors, expireds, friends,
Geographically, price
whoever, right?
points.
Go everywhere.
Yeah.
But start with, like you said, start with one, then incrementally
Yeah.
grow. And then number three, which I think was the key, I'm like, oh, how do we do this? You go into your database. That actually makes the most sense. You want to diversify because you don't know who's in your database really. Just go out there and you start diversifying by paying attention to your database and making sure you're nurturing them. So that's where I want to press a little bit more.
Sure.
You touched on it lightly, like some of the things that you're doing, right? What does it look like on a consistent basis for for us as agents to do this in a year? Like with Fellow, and
Yeah.
if we wanted to duplicate it outside, which is a
Sure.
really challenge, right? But
Yeah, 100%. And something I think is really important. I see some friends in Canada in the group chat from Whistler and other places. Fellow doesn't operate in Canada, and I'm always as I do these webinars and podcasts, I'm always saying, like, look, everything I'm telling you, you don't need Fellow to do, right? So
yeah.
all of our friends in Canada, like, you could literally apply these principles, these philosophies, and just do them yourself. You don't need to use Fellow. You could do this all manually. That's how it all kind of started. Is I was doing a lot of this manually, but there's a couple kind of like core principles if you want to if you want to have a consistent flow of opportunities. And
Yeah.
I think the key is, and once again, this stems from a lot of the things that my real estate team used to do. Um, First, you got to start with building a database of homeowners. Okay. I think way too many times I ask people how many contacts you have in your database,
Hmm.
and the response is so proud. It's like 7,000, 20,000, whatever the number is, right? And then I say,
Hmm.
that's awesome. How many of those are homeowners? And they like look at me like,
I
oh
don't
shit.
know.
Yeah, like
How do we know? That's
how do I
exactly.
know? Like, I don't know. I bought buyer leads for the last decade from Zillow or Realtor.com or whatever it is. And it's like, they're like, how should I know how many homeowners I have in my database? And I think that's a core problem when it comes to building a seller pipeline, a listing pipeline. If you want to do this profitably and you want to do this predictable, or if you want to create predictability in your business. So the first thing is, how do we identify who are the actual homeowners in your database? So there is software. Obviously, this is something Fellow can do for you. But there is software for you to ultimately use to identify if these people own homes, or if you just want to do it purely organic and you want to send them an email, something like, Tristan, hey, it's Ryan with the Young Team. I'm not sure if you've seen, but there are some pretty crazy events that have happened in Southern California over the past 6 months. Are you
Yeah.
curious how that's impacted your home's value? Okay. Now you're if so, just type back your address and I'm happy to send you a CMA, right? Or comprehensive analysis or whatever you want to call it, right? And I'll get you the most up-to-date market value as of today. Okay.
Yeah.
Once again, this is a manual lift. We can automate all of this, but this is kind of a creative way for you to start thinking through and saying, what message can I get to someone in my database that I don't know whether they own a home or they don't. And so here's just a way of you to start sending some sort of emails of saying, hey, Tristan, I just wanted to check in. I know you were looking for real estate in the past. My team is actually providing free CMAs, whatever it may be. Happy to provide one for you if you think that would be of help to identify how much your home is worth. That's like, I would say, the most manual. It's it's a way you can do it. I would
Hmm.
recommend leveraging software to automate this, right?
Yeah, me too.
Just so everyone knows, before Fellow, the reason why this all came about was the Young Team used to have a process when a buyer lead would come in. We leverage software called Forewarn, which is
Yeah.
provided by our MLS. And forewarn actually gives you any like criminal history, stuff like that. We had a process, an SOP that basically said, before we call this person and set an appointment, let's just verify on forewarn for every new lead that comes in to make sure that
Hmm.
they're not a criminal, that they don't have anything, that would be potentially dangerous to our team members before we set
Yeah.
an appointment for them. So I started observing what we were doing and I was going crazy because every new buyer lead that would come in, we would go to forewarn, we would make sure that they didn't have any sort of criminal history, and then we would go and set the appointment and we wouldn't do anything after that. But when you were in forewarn, there was an address for the prospect sitting right above the criminal history. And so I'm sitting there like, why aren't we
Mm.
putting the address in the CRM? Like, we're literally doing all the work. We're going to forewarn. We're identifying that they're in good standing citizen or whatever it is. And then we're just going and setting a buyer appointment when we're literally looking at an address. We can very quickly go take that address, go to our county auditor, identify that they own the property, and we are seeing so many homeowners sitting right in front of us that that we're not even like we're just looking at as purely buyers, right? And so I say this because this is a little bit of an expedited way is to leverage software, right? That audits, that tells you, yes, this person is a homeowner. This is what one of the things that Fellow does. But this is the core to like really starting to identify who my actual addressable market is, who are these homeowners in my database, because this is where if you can start getting consistent messaging to them, you are going to start to see predictability. And I actually want to show you something really quickly that I think will kind of validate this on how the young team approaches our database. So this is my Fellow account. I've got 69,000 people in my database. Okay. And I
Okay.
know it's a little small. Let me zoom in on that, right?
Love
60,
it.
almost 70,000. So I'm going to come in really quickly and just say how many of them have an address present. So I can see that 59,000 of the 60,000 of the
Damn.
70,000, a pretty high concentration. We've worked really hard over the years to identify how many people with an address we can find. Let's take it one step further and let's identify, Fellow has intelligence to identify if they are the owner of that property or not. Let's just identify of these 59,000, how many of them are actual homeowners so that we
Got
have a
it.
high confidence are the homeowners. So I have
Damn.
45,000 homeowners, right? Maybe the other 15,000 are renters of those properties. And then I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to keep it somewhat simple and say how many of them are in the state of Ohio, because that's my serviceable market. All right.
Hmm.
So this is what I have to work with. I have 30, almost 39,000 homeowners in Ohio. Okay.
Hmm.
This is where I start consistently driving listings from. So that first step is basically identifying who are the homeowners in your database. And once again, you could go from the first recommendation, which is purely manual, reaching out to them, asking them if you can send them an updated CMA and asking them for their address. You'll see a much lower conversion if you do that. Or you
Yeah.
can expedite with third-party software like Forewarn or other things out there, right? Or you could just go with Fellow, plug your entire database in and press a button. It will just push it all that data out for you. But my point is that it's like that is where you want to start when it
Mm.
comes to consistently driving listings out of your database is you need to identify who are the homeowners in your database. If you tell me I don't have a big database, then your biggest focus needs to be building a database,
Building a
right?
database.
Leverage the free opportunity of organically building your database, and you will see this just unlocks a significant amount of profit in your business.
Yeah, I guess if you're also telling me I don't have any listings, the question would also be like, how big's your database? Like,
How
are
big
we
is your
do
database?
we need to work on your database
We
again?
see, so
Right.
once again, I'll pop back in here. So we have all this rich data in Fellow, and we basically show you every day who's listing their home in your database, whether they list with or without you. So with the young team in the past 180 days, there's been 1,837 listings that are in my database that have gone to market, right? So
Mm.
it's like the bigger the database you have, the more addresses you find, the more you're going to identify that a lot of people in your database are listing their home, right? So it's like this is the key of like, that's a great point of like, if you don't have any listings, that is purely a byproduct of having an under, either having a very small database or having an under, I would say, utilized or optimized database. Because your database should be your largest asset. Your database should be this. I look at my database as this asset that constantly creates passive income for me. And by passive income, I mean, it's being marketed appropriately and it continues to spit out listing opportunities for me. And if you don't have that in your business, you're probably feeling some of the seasonalities like we talked about because you're riding a hot spring market and then you have a down summer market and then you have a strong fall market and then you have a slow winter. Versus if your database is constantly being incubated and you know who all these homeowners are, it's going to consistently produce opportunities. It's going to spit out listings for you.
All right. So how do we now say, let's say we segment our database,
Yep.
like you segment it, find out who's who. How do we then nurture it so
Mm.
that it gives us hand raisers, so that it creates the passive income we want? What is this for our Canada people, right? That's a little bit harder. Like, how do we create that? And obviously, if you're in the US, just use Fellow. That's a simplified
Yep.
version. But what does this
Yep.
look
What this looks like is so first off, you have to be extremely consistent. You have to consistently get your message in front of these people. So within the young team, for example, we've sent 164,000 emails in the last 90 days.
like?
Okay.
Damn,
So it's like, and look, that we have a 20% open rate. It's
it's
good.
pretty good.
It's not exceptional, but for this big of a database, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
creating
good for
significant,
that database, man.
yeah, it's creating a nice amount of engagement. And so here's the key is whether you're in Canada, you're in the States, you have to provide something of value, something of substance. So some of the things that my team likes to do is we really like to center around the home value. That is the anchor message that we like really lean into is check out the value of your home. Once again, you can do this manually, but like discover your home value, check out the value of your home, see recent sales, see how your value has changed, etc. All white labeled, all personalized. If you don't have access to this, then you need to be able to send some sort of messaging around, hey, just updating my database, just updating my network. I'm happy to provide you updated value. If you'd like me to do so, let me know. But you have to do this consistently. They have to think about you. So I've sent 170,000 emails in the last 90 days. 20% of them have opened those emails. They're thinking about my brand when they're thinking about the value of their home. When they're thinking about selling their home, they're thinking about the value of their home. Okay. So I'm conditioning them when it comes to selling, at least to consistently getting my brand in front of them. And then the other thing I think is extremely important is you have to do something besides, just giving them the value of their home. You've got to give them other things of substance. You have to make recommendations. You have to be a resource. You have to be like their go-to when it comes to what do I need to do to get my home ready before I sell it? What are the improvements I should put into my home that have the best return on investment? What are
Mhm.
trends that people are investing into their homes right now? What are market trends that we're starting to see? Like whatever it is that is relevant to your area in call it the season, you have to
Mhm.
be the resource for them. They should think of you when they think of any sort of anything that I would say encompasses home value, home improvement, home resources. We need to be that resource because if we aren't the resource, guess who is?
Someone
Zillow,
else. Yeah.
realtor.com, your competition, whatever it may be. So the more we can get a message of value in front of them, something of substance in front of them, the more likely when they are ready to transact, they're going to come to us because we've been providing so much value for them. And I'm not talking about for a month or two, I'm talking about for years.
Okay, so on that note, I noticed when you showed your screen
Yeah.
that it also had postcards. So
Yep.
can you tell me the different ways that we should be, from your experience, we should
Yep.
be touching our database? Is it just emails, some
Yeah. Great
postcards,
question.
text? calls? Give me that whole mix.
Yeah, so here's my recommendation around direct mail versus email.
Hmm.
Um, I love direct mail marketing to areas where you don't have an established relationship with the prospect yet. I only like to introduce direct mail to my database when I'm seeing engagement from the email. Okay. There is such a email is such a fractional cost to direct mail that I like to use direct mail as an anchor to continue to pull someone down the
Hmm.
funnel once they're already engaging with my emails. Now, some
Got
people
it.
have the methodology of saying, well, if they don't open my email, maybe I'll send direct mail, right?
Hmm.
To try to get them to engage because they're not, maybe it's going into spam, maybe they're, it's an old email, whatever it is. I
Hmm.
disagree. I think that direct mail is a very valuable tool and a very valuable, I would say, channel.
Yeah.
But don't do it until you've optimized and maxed out the amount of emails you're sending to your database and the amount of engagement. So when you feel like, all right, I'm kind of like seeing diminishing returns from my email campaigns. It's not like if I send one more email a month or if I add 5,000 more people and start emailing them, I'm going to see this massive lift.
Mm.
Then start to introduce the higher intent channel, right? But like email has the highest return on investment. Don't make the investment into direct mail until you've already kind of like, until you feel really good that you've optimized your email strategy.
I like that. So then at what point does text or calling come into play with the nurturing with you?
So we really, when you have a database of this size, we really focus on engagement. So we're investing the majority of our time calling and texting people that have been engaged in some of these messages, right? Like I can go into my database and say, I'll just show you what this looks like. Contacts. Let's get out of here. So like, let's just focus on people that let's just sort by people that have clicked, consistently on their dashboard, right? So it's like I have people opening 248 emails from me, clicking on their dashboard 86 times, like people that are
Yeah.
actively really, really engaged, right? Like this
Yeah.
guy just 7 days ago clicked on his and look at the engagement. This is we have no shortage of engagement within our database. And whether it's
Nuts.
buyers or sellers, but these are the people that we need to have a conversation with. Now I'll take it one step further because once again, we have a big database. Let's
Hmm.
focus on the people that have been in their home for more than 20 years. The longer they've been in their home, the more equity they probably have. So I have 9,400 people that have been in their home for over 20 years. And then let's just do one more. We know that right now people struggle to consider selling if they have a 3-4% mortgage on their home. They don't want to lose that mortgage. So let's only find people that have been in their home for over 20 years that don't have a mortgage on their property. So here are the people that are most engaged, right? That are actively that are higher likelihood to sell prospects because of their home ownership and the equity they have in their property without having a mortgage. So it's like we're focusing on conversations with these type of people. Now, full disclosure, we've built a very big database and we've incubated the database at a very high level. And that's why we produce, sell 500 homes a year without any Zillow Flex or any of the other kind of lead sources that most people have. But I can come
Yeah.
in here and say, look at Harold. Harold has opened 107 emails from us. Harold's been in his house since 1991. Harold bought his house for $118,000 and now it's worth 350, right?
Ooh.
Like this is a good prospect. Harold doesn't have a mortgage on his property. This is someone that is actively opening, clicking on, etc. It's like this is someone that we should ultimately be having regular conversations with, you
I
know?
love that. Great example, by the way. There's
Yeah.
a question. Does Fellow replace your existing CRM then, or does it work in conjunction with?
Yeah, great question. No, no, no. Fellow two-way syncs with your CRM. So we're kind of like a marketing engine, marketing and sales engine for your CRM. As soon as a new lead hits your CRM, it pushes into Fellow. You have the ability to automatically enrich that with property data. Then what happens is Fellow starts to engage with that prospect when we get them to raise their hand, and then it pushes right back over into your CRM.
I love that, man. Well, I'd suggest anybody who has questions about Fellow or
Yep.
just the process in general that you want Ryan to maybe expand on. Ryan, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
I would say you can just go to fellow.ai, and that's Fello, and make sure you reference lab coat agents because there's a nice promo in there for everyone. If you are interested in it, I want to make sure that you capitalize on that.
Perfect. We did put in the link there. I'm going to throw it one more time. And if there he goes. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. And if you guys have any questions, please go there. Ryan, what are you guys focused on this year? Anything different to continue your growth?
Yeah, love it. So first off, the introduction of AI all over the platform
Okay.
is going to be massive. Literally, the concept behind like when I right now, one of the things that's really cool about Fellow is it's very robust and it's very
Yeah,
powerful.
I see
One
that.
of the challenges are it's very robust and it's very powerful. It's so, almost to some potentially intimidating. So, like if I said I want to find people in my database that are homeowners that, you know, don't that have owned their home for over 20 years in this zip code, because I want to send out an automatic, I want to send an email campaign to them. You have to like know how to work the platform. You have to build automations. You have to build, different marketing campaigns, etc. Where we're
Yeah.
going, what's so cool is it's actually going to be live in 30 days from now. Is you'll literally just be able to type in, this is who I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for anyone like just kind of if you think of like the chat GPT like prompt methodology, you can literally
Mm,
just type in and say, I'm looking for anyone in this zip code that's been in their home for over 20 years that doesn't have a mortgage on their property. Can you pull me
that's
a
so
list?
good.
And then it's like,
Dude.
awesome. Can you launch a postcard campaign to them that is talks about
Mm,
getting a
yeah.
cash offer on their home?
Yeah.
Do press send and it's gone. And it's like the ability to leverage really complex, really well-built technology, but to make it so user-friendly. It's really powerful. Customers love Fellow. We launched in October of 22, so about almost 2.5 years ago or so. We have about 20,000 users on the platform, over 2,400 teams, over 50% of the Real Trends top 1,000. And I say that because there is there is obviously a pain point within our industry that we've solved very quickly of we have these databases, they're underutilized, they're under monetized, they're under leveraged in our business. And Fellow really started to, I would just start to, I would say, expose the opportunities that we have in front of us. And so if you can take what we're doing and make it so easy to use, and so where people can optimize 90% of it, it just takes the profitability, the return on investment to a whole nother level. It's almost like we have, these complicated things in our hands that we hold all the time and we use them to text, we use them to go on social media, and we use them maybe for a flashlight if we can't find, if we're in a dark room. They do thousands of other things, right? Our cars do thousands of things and we only use so many of them. How do we unlock all of these really cool features? And, you know, to me, that's where this AI introduction of just being like, what are you looking to do today? Here's what I'm looking to accomplish. Great. Here, let us do it for you. That's how technology should be. And that's ultimately where we're going.
It simplifies our lives, man. You're doing such
It
a great job.
simplifies our lives 100%. And sometimes simple is good, sometimes simple is unproductive. What this should do is make you more productive, more efficient, simplify, allow you to focus on the highest dollar productive activities. Um, you shouldn't have to be a tech wizard. You shouldn't have to spend your day doing administrative tasks. You
So
know,
true.
You should be in front of clients and customers, and that's what we love to
Building
do. You know,
relationships, man. That's all we're
building
supposed to.
relationship.
I love this. Great job on building this, man. This is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah. Thanks for being on. Anybody who has questions, please feel free to reach out to Ryan. What do we have, Kathy? We had a lot of thanks. Excellent timeline points. Thank you. I know earlier I had a few people from Canada say thank you for taking the time to explain how it works for us that don't have
Yeah.
access. That was
Yeah.
great. Thank you, man. Appreciate
Of course.
that. This was awesome. Thank you. Everybody, thanks for joining. If you have any questions, jump into that link. If you can't find it, just go to Fellow, FELLO.ai. I'm excited for what's next, man. Good job.
I appreciate you. If you need anything, give me a holler.
Thanks,
See you
everybody.
guys.